Hello everyone. So welcome back. So let's start with the first topic under General Studies Paper 2. Okay, constitutional amendments and basic structure. Okay, so we have seen in the high frequency topics, one of the important topics that UPSC mains, the previous from previous year question papers. There are multiple times that UPSC has been asking on this topic, constitutional amendments and basic structure. Okay. Let's start. Okay, let's talk about this. So, can the Parliament of India rewrite the entire constitution? Okay, can it abolish fundamental rights? Can it turn India into a dictatorship legally? So, the answer for all this lies in one of the most powerful judicial doctrines ever created, that is nothing but the basic structure doctrine. And it all started with a land reform case in 1973 that changed Indian constitutional history forever. Okay, so let's start understanding Article 368. The amending power of the constitution lies in this article. Okay, so what is Article 368? So Article 368 deals with the power of parliament to amend the constitution and the procedure for doing so. So it falls under the part 20 of the constitution. Okay, so if you look at the procedure, okay, so what is the procedure, like what are the types of amendments we have in order to amend the constitution? So there are three ways to amend the Indian constitution. Okay, so first type is simple majority. So it's not under Article 368, but it's just the procedure is ordinary legislative process where majority of members present and they vote. Okay. So for example, admission of new states, creation of legislature in UTs. So if you remember, the formation of Telangana happened by this process. Okay. Then there is second way, that is special majority. So in this case, what happens is two-thirds of majority of members present and voting plus majority of total membership of each house. Okay, so most of the constitutional amendments that happen in our parliament, they happen by this special majority. Then there is one more important thing, special majority by state ratification. This is the third way, and this is like more difficult way of getting a constitutional amendment. So in this, what happens is whatever that is done in special majority, that is two-third majority of members present and voting plus majority of total membership of each house plus approval by at least 50% of state legislatures. Okay, so when in what cases this way is preferred for a constitutional amendment means provisions affecting federal structure. So anywhere there is any constitutional article or any provision that is affecting the center and state relations or state related things, that is provisions affecting federal structure under Article 54, 55, 73 and 162. So chapter 4 of part 5. Okay, so all this, in all these cases we use special majority plus state ratification, okay, in order to do constitutional amendment bill. And one of the important thing is there is no provision for a joint sitting of parliament for constitutional amendments. So unlike ordinary legislations where sometimes there can be joint sitting, like both Lok Sabha and Raj Sabhas can sit together and they can pass the bill by majority. But for constitutional amendments, if one house rejects, then the constitutional amendment fails. Okay, so that's it. Let's look at the part 2, history of constitutional amendments. Okay, okay. So, part 2, history of constitutional amendments. Okay, so let's look at it. Phase 1. Okay, so this was like a big battleground at those times in 1950s to 60s. So it was parliament versus property rights. You know, after independence, like very few individuals had like thousands of acres in their names, like Jamindars were there. So there were many people without any land rights and anything. So the government at that time decided to bring in some land reform laws. Okay, so for that First Amendment Act 1951, they have added ninth schedule to protect land reform laws from judicial review. So they said like, so we are bringing some land reform laws, and Parliament wanted to redistribute land. So court actually at those days they struck down these laws. So because they were violating property rights. If you remember Article 16 at that time, Article 16. Article 16, no, no, sorry, Article 19(1)(f), I think. Article 19(1)(f), I think Article 19(1)(f). Yes, yes. Article 19(1)(f) was giving right to property as a fundamental right. So what courts were doing at that time, whenever government is bringing these land reform laws, court was striking these laws down as because they were violating property rights, which was a fundamental right. So government has brought this amendment. Then 17th Amendment 1964. They expanded the ninth schedule even further. Okay, so the key conflict in this time was, is Parliament's power to amend Constitution unlimited? Okay, so can it take away fundamental rights? Because right to property was a fundamental right, then there arose the question that it can Parliament take away fundamental rights? Okay, so now we'll get into phase 2, the Golaknath judgment 1967. Okay, in this case, the Supreme Court 11 judge bench ruled that Parliament cannot amend fundamental rights at all. Constitutional amendments are ordinary law under Article 13 and must not violate Part 3. Part 3 is nothing but our fundamental rights. So, after listening to this judgment, like Parliament was stunned. This meant that all past amendments curtailing fundamental rights were invalid. So, in all the idea of land reforms, like restricting jamindars from owning thousands of acres, all these laws were like made void by this judgment. Okay, then what happened? Parliament in third phase, 1971. So Parliament will strike back. Okay, with 24th and 25th amendments in 1971. So what does the 24th Amendment Act 1971 says? It added a class 4 to Article 13, saying that amendments are not law, and amended Article 368 to explicitly state Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution, including fundamental rights. And also, they have brought in 25th Amendment Act 1971, and they are added an article called 31C. So these laws giving effect to directive principles, Article 39B and 39C. So they cannot be challenged on the ground of violating Article 14 or Article 19. So if you remember directive principles of state policy 39B and 39C, they are like equal distribution of wealth, I think related to that. So Article 31C made sure that whenever government is implementing some of these reforms like land reforms or any other reforms in order to redistribute the wealth and alleviate the poverty in our country, they said that they cannot be challenged on the ground of violating Article 14 or Article 19. Okay, then came 42nd Amendment Act 1976. They have extended this Article 31C to all the directive principle and also declared that amendments beyond judicial review. Okay, so whatever amendments that were made, these were beyond judicial review. So Parliament said courts cannot decide on this and they cannot do review and say that these laws can be null and void. Okay, so then comes the famous. So this is all trailer. So now the original case will come, like the ultimate case, Kesavananda Bharati case in 1973. Okay, so all these previous Golaknath case and all the again Parliament striking back with amendments, so all this set the stage for the most important constitutional case in Indian history. That is the Kesavananda Bharati case, 1973. It was a landmark case, and even now it has been the benchmark. It is like foundation for many of these things. So the full name is Kesavananda Bharati Sri Padagalavaru versus State of Kerala in 1973. So what was the background? So Kesavananda Bharati was the head of a religious mutt in Kerala. So, whose land was acquired under the Kerala Land Reforms Act. So, he challenged the acquisition as violating his fundamental rights. Remember, Article 19(1)(f), right to property is fundamental right. Okay. So, the 13 bench verdict. What happened? This was the largest constitutional bench ever assembled in India. So 13 judges and gave a split verdict of 7 is to 6. So 7 judges came in favor of this and 6 opposed this. So what was decided? Golaknath, whatever Golaknath said, like Parliament can amend fundamental rights, cannot amend fundamental rights, was overruled, and they said Parliament can amend fundamental rights. So if you check in Golaknath case, what did they say? Parliament cannot amend. Now, in this case, they have said Parliament can amend fundamental rights. Okay, but they have kept one condition. So they said Parliament can amend fundamental rights, but Parliament cannot destroy the basic structure of the Constitution. Though they kept this one single condition, saying that Parliament cannot destroy the basic structure of the Constitution. So this basic Constitution, the basic structure doctrine was born from this judgment. Okay. So what are the elements of basic structure? Okay. So in actually the code did not give any exhaustive list. Okay, so basically code did not say what is, it did not define what is basic structure. It just said that Parliament cannot destroy the basic structure of the Constitution. But over the decades there were like various cases through which we can infer that some of the things that are there in our constitution are part of basic structure. So what is basic structure? Say something like supremacy of the constitution. Okay, and republican and democratic form of government. So this is basic structure. So tomorrow if some government says no, no, nothing doing, we will not be republic and we will not be democratic, we will just make it a dictatorship. So what will Supreme Court do? As a defender of the constitution, it will say no, nothing doing. Since republican and democratic form of government is a part of basic structure, you cannot remove that. So, secular character of the Constitution, S.R. Bomai. In this S.R. Bomai, secular character of the Constitution was again made part of basic structure. So tomorrow, someone will come to India and say they will get like super majority, all even if they win all full seats in both Lok Sabha and also they get seats in Rajya Sabha, and also even if they win all the state elections, they cannot change the secular character of the constitution. So tomorrow they cannot say that we will make this country some Rashtra or some based on some religion, nothing doing. Courts will come in and they will say no, no, no way. Secular character of the constitution is the basic structure of constitution. Then separation of powers. So separation of powers, like judiciary, legislative, executive, they have different functionalities. So uh, no one should interfere in judiciary, no one, or it should not. Whatever judiciary has to do, they will do. Whatever legislature has to do, they will do it. Whatever executive has to do, they will do. So something like that. So federal character, judicial review, free and fair elections. So these are the cases from which we can infer that these are the part elements of basic structure. Judicial review from L. Chandra Kumar, free and fair elections from Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan, rule of law, fundamental rights, parliamentary system, unity and integrity of India. So if someone says like, no, no, we will secess from our India, we will form a separate country. No, it cannot be possible because unity and integrity of India is part of basic structure of constitution. Okay, and also harmony between FR and DAPSPs, that is fundamental rights and directive principle of state policy, Minerva Mills case. So this is also one of the landmark judgment. So fundamental rights and directive principle state policy, sometimes they get into conflict. So in order to maintain harmony between them, so sometimes when DPSP centers, FR might be ignored. So something like land reform laws or anything related to some reforms related to poverty elevation, uh, in those cases laws made in support of DPSPs will be having a higher preference. Okay, and limited power of parliament to amend. Okay, so parliament cannot amend, as does not have unlimited power. It has limited power. So unlike some other parliaments like UK, so England parliament, it can amend anything. So there is a famous saying that England's parliament can do everything on this earth except changing a man to woman or vice versa. Okay. So then powers of Supreme Court under Article 32, then principle of equality. Okay. So basic structure, if we see, so basic structure, if you see, is an open-ended, evolving doctrine, and Supreme Court keeps adding it to it case by case. Okay. So these are the different elements from our review all the cases, Supreme Court cases, wherein we can say these are the elements of basic structure. So it's like supremacy of constitution, republican and democratic form of government, secular character, separation of powers, federal character, judicial review, free and fair elections, rule of law, fundamental rights, parliamentary system, unity and integrity of India, harmony between fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy, limited power of parliament to amend, powers of Supreme Court under Article 32, and principles of equality. Okay, so I think let's stop here. In next class, we will look into this part 4. What happened post Kesavananda Bharati judgment? What were the developments that have happened? Okay. I will make sure that classes, each video does not exceed 20 minutes so that you can be focused and just if don't lose any, what do you say? Don't get bored. Okay. Thank you.